This episode brought to you by TAUMMHOMS, which is a natural sleep and sound healing portal helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer through TAUMMHOMS.com. That's www.TAUMMHOMS.com. Hey, I'm Lord Toby Wright, and this is my Wright Stuff News. All right, and welcome to the My Right Stuff Good News Network. Let's kick things off with some music news. Well, Harry Styles releases Harry's House, the third full-length solo release for Harry, and it was recorded in Los Angeles, Tokyo, and the United Kingdom. And it was produced by Kid Harpoon and Tyler Johnson. The Black Keys release Dropout Boogie. It's the latest full-length release for the duo rock band, and it features an appearance from ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, also Greg Cartwright and Angelo Petraglia. Dance Fever is the newest release from Florence and the Machine. This is the fifth full-length studio release for the British indie rock band and features productions from Jack Antonoff and Glass Animals' Dave Bailey. Kendrick Lamar releases Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. His fifth full-length studio release features guest appearances from Baby Keem, Sam Dew, Ghostface Killah, Beth Gibbons of Portishead, Kodak Black, Tana Leone, and many, many more. Stay tuned for that one. Let's go on over to film and TV. Night Sky premieres on Amazon Prime today. The premise of this sci-fi streaming series is about a couple that has a secret portal to another planet on their property. Very intriguing. Factor in that the couple is played by the great Sissy Spacek and J.K. Simmons, and this feels like something worth adding to the potential watch list. The Ipcress File is now in AMC. Michael Caine's sexpionage thriller rebooted. Well, back in 1965, Michael Caine kicked off his own spy franchise with The Ipcress File, a thriller less swanky and silly than the Bond films. As we await a new Bond actor, AMC Plus is bringing back The Ipcress File with Joe Cole as British spy Harry Palmer. Cole wears Caine's signature trench coat and chunky glasses and is at the center of a Cold War-era story about abducted scientists, treason, and an unwise romance. Well, Bob's Burger, the movie. All right. It comes out next week. Ruptured water main creates an enormous sinkhole right in front of Bob's Burgers, blocking the entrance indefinitely and ruining the Belchers' plans for a successful summer. While Bob and Linda struggle to keep the business afloat, the kids try to solve a mystery that could save their family's restaurant. And as the dangers mount, these underdogs help each other find hope as they try to get back behind the counter. Firestarter. Well, it's a remake of the 1984 film, and it's out in theaters and on Peacock. A couple desperately try to hide their daughter, Charlie, from a shadowy federal agency that wants to harness her unprecedented gift for turning fire into a weapon of mass destruction. Her father taught her how to diffuse her power, but as Charlie turns 11, the fire becomes harder and harder to control. When a mysterious operative finally finds the family, he tries to seize Charlie once and for all. But she has other plans. It's going to be good. Let's go on over to the world of sports. In Formula One news, this week is the Spanish Grand Prix at Circuit de Barcelona, Catalonia. Charles Leclerc is still in first place in the Drivers' Championship, followed by Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez. Good luck to everybody there this weekend. In more racing news, Lamborghini Squadra Course, the automaker's motorsport division, has announced Tuesday that it will field cars in both the WeatherTech Championship and the FIA World Endurance Championship, known as the WEC, beginning in 2024. The GTP class debuts in the WeatherTech Championship in 2023, replacing Daytona Prototype International, or DPI as we know them, as the most technologically advanced class in the series. Well, in the Premier League, leaders Manchester City play Aston Villa. Second place Liverpool play the Wolves, and Chelsea play Watford. Well, this is the last week and comes down to one game. If Manchester City win, they're the champs. Man City loses and Liverpool win, Liverpool are the champs. Should be a very exciting weekend for soccer and racing. Good luck, sports fans. Well, on over to Gear and Tech. Well, Oberheim returns to operations and releases its first new synth in 35 years. In a momentous industry development, Oberheim Electronics, one of the most widely known names in synthesizer design, has announced its return to operation to meet the rising global demand for its instruments. The company has launched its first new product, the OBX8, an 8-voice polyphonic analog synth that combines all of the key features of the legendary OBX, OBXA, and the OB8 products from the 80s, including all the original presets that gave them their signature sounds. The OBX8 8-voice analog synth will be available at the end of June with a U.S. price of $5,000, $4,999, and you can find Oberheim here. So get yours now. Well, that's all the news that's making the news this week, May 20th, 2022. Now, over to you, my lord. Oh, hey, thank you, Toby, and welcome back to My Right Stuff, which is a film, TV, sports, music, adventure, and inspirational lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Lord Rage Wright, and today we're celebrating the first episode of Season 2 here at My Right Stuff. Season 1 was very educational and inspiring, and Season 2 promises to be even better with more continued education on health issues and fun, adventurous episodes, and maybe even some going remote. We'll have to see what happens. Well, let's kick off Season 2 at My Right Stuff with a very interesting guest who is one of the most revered music supervisors in the movie industry. She's won a Grammy for A Star is Born and has been nominated for numerous other awards. But we'll get into that in a little bit later. But first, I want to thank you, all of our supporters who stream, download, watch, and support My Right Stuff. Keep spreading the word, my friends. We really, really do appreciate it, and it is helping. Be sure to click on our show notes below to follow our link tree for a full list of all the channels we stream on, as well as all of our sites and social media platforms. If you'd like to donate to My Right Stuff, please do. And please follow our support link. Every single dollar helps support the My Right Stuff crew who make all of this possible. And of course, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as the podcast channel of your choice so you never, ever miss a single episode. Well, after this episode, please head on over to myrightstuff.com, click on the store tab, and pick up some snazzy merch for those bodies, which would make an ideal present for your nearest and dearest, so get them now. Well, before we get started on today's episode, I'd like to introduce my co-host, the man whose music needs no supervision. Ladies and gentlemen, my distinguished co-host, Sir Gareth Dyton. Hey Gareth,
Toby.
How are you doing today?
I'm really good, Toby, my friend. We're back for Season 2, and the world is our oyster. Let's bring it on, my friend.
Oh, you got it, brother. Do you have
yes.
some new music you're going to hit us with today?
Well, surprising you should say that, because for this episode I have a mixed bag as usual. First of all, I want to tell all of our lovely listeners and viewers about a new album from one of my old favourites. And yes, as has been brought up before now, I do have lots of old favourites. UK-based Spiritualized released a brand new album called Everything Was Beautiful. And the music has always been a beautiful mix of garage rock, indie, pop, psychedelic, almost freeform jazz in places, with blues and gospel thrown in for a good ride, really. They've also got a really good niche of making, I like to call it, controlled noise. and they've blended their signature sound to a T here. It's the kind of album you listen to and it makes you realize why you fell in love with that band in the first place. It is just absolutely incredible. It's very typically what you would expect from Jason Spaceman and Company, and it truly is a thing of delight from start to finish. They're about to head out on some live dates across the world to support the release, and if you get a chance to catch them live, I would highly recommend it. They are a truly wonderful band who have been consistently brilliant since the early 90s. The next offering I want to tell you about is a band called Darvel from Barcelona, and they released an album through my friends at Submarine Broadcasting Company last November called Through the Never-Ending Sound of Silence. And oh my word, what a record it is from start to finish. Made by Josep Matteo and Jim Dooley, the pair have created an instrumental rock masterpiece. If you like post-rock, krautrock, space rock and a bit of prog thrown in. It's a bit of experimental and some psychedelic, almost stoner in places. It's really beautifully made. It's moving, it's clever in its delivery, and the album builds up to the 20-minute long title track. And wow, it doesn't half take you on some places. Highly, highly recommended. It's unbelievable to think that this is their debut album, but it doesn't sound like a debut album, and I'm sure Toby knows what I mean in that. And you can find that album on bandcamp.com and Spotify. And finally, I'm going to tell you about one of my favourite artists, Holy Fuck. Clever electronic artists from Canada have released their third standalone track since their last album, Deleter, which was one of my top 10 albums of 2020, and they are first track of the year. The track is called 95, and it's just very typically them, really. Pounding drums, pulsing bass lines, and distorted vocals that give us several minutes of funky cleverness. I recently caught them live in Cardiff as part of the world tour, and the show was nothing shy of incredible. I defy anyone to go and see this live band and not want to move your feet and throw some shapes to their unique brand of oddball electronic greatness. 95 is available now to buy and stream from all the usual outlets. And also, like I said, if you get a chance to see them, go and do it because they're in the middle of a world tour.
Well, excellent. Thank you for that, Gareth. And those sound really interesting. I'm going to have to go check them out as always, but you forgot to tell our audience a little something about contacting you, didn't you?
I did indeed. Because I kind of wanted you to. I kind of wanted you to bring it to the fore so we could have a conversation about it in front of all of our beautiful listeners. If you guys check out these choices, please do. Please feel free to let me know and Toby know what you think of my kind of recommendations by leaving comments on the YouTube page. The comments are open, actually, like sort of beneath every single episode. So once you've checked something out, please feel free to come along and comment. Also, if you have a band and you think that we should be discussing you on this segment of the show, then why not take this opportunity to get in touch with us via that medium and drop us some links, and we will, of course, check you out, and you may well feature on this part of the show on a later episode.
And even maybe a full episode, depends who you are. And
Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, I know, right? We're just teasing the audience now, Gareth.
We are. We're playing.
Well,
we are,
Gareth, we are. Well, right now, Gareth, I'd like to introduce one of the entertainment industry's most important and busiest music supervisors. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a nice warm welcome to Julia Michels. Hey, Julia, how are you today?
I'm great, Toby. How are you?
Oh, excellent. I'm excellent. Thank you. And God, it's good to see you. And thank you very, very much for coming on My Right Stuff and telling all our viewers what you do and, to dispel some of that, little magic that goes on. But
yeah, right.
First,
my pleasure.
Thank you. I'd like to introduce you to my distinguished co-host, Sir Gareth Dyton.
Hi, Gareth.
Hello, Julia. How are you doing today?
Nice to meet you.
It's very, very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
It's very, very nice to meet you too, and thank you ever so much for taking time out to join us today. Well, I suppose...
Truly my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Here at My Right Stuff, we kind of like to start at the beginning. So the first question I'm going to ask you is, did you grow up in a musical house? And do you play any musical instruments yourself?
Good question. I did grow up in a musical house, but not as far as playing instruments. So my parents played a lot of records, or I should say albums, which, because people don't understand that records is not just a song, it's an album back in the day. But a lot of Broadway, a lot of theater albums, rock and roll too, but it was mostly a musical house where we danced and sang. We played the obligatory piano that we had to do that we didn't like, where mom set the timer and we're supposed to learn our piano. And I did try the flute for a second, only because it got me out of class. But other than that, it was more just about having music around in the house all the time.
Nice.
Awesome. What kind of music do you listen to? And is there any type that you don't like?
That's a good question. I like to answer the question by saying I listen to the music depending on the needs of what films I'm working on. A lot of times I'll work on genre films, so I'm listening to that genre of music specifically. For instance, I'm working on a movie right now that was set in 1984. So I'm listening to a lot of 80s music, which I'm loving. I just finished a movie with a kind of an older demographic, and I was listening to a lot of 70s music, which of course is my favorite era. But I listen to everything. I listen to, things that's obviously current on the radio. I love discovering all the new music. I have a 15-year-old son, so it's kind of fun to share all that with him.
Nice.
Sure.
When I was younger, I listened to all the Gap Band and the Daz Band and Michael Jackson and Kool and the Gang. But then I also am from the Midwest, so I like the roots rock. I love John Mellencamp. I love Bruce Springsteen, Melissa Etheridge, Indigo Girls, that kind of stuff. So I listen to a lot of music, but sometimes my time is limited. So I'm really focusing on the genre and what I need for the movie or the movies, because I tend to work on more than one film at a time of what that movie is needing at the moment.
Yeah, makes sense.
That's great.
That's very interesting. You started working as director for soundtracks at Capitol Records. How did you kind of get into that?
Well, I have to go back one job before that, which is my first job in the business, which was really what started my career, thankfully, and gave me a really big education in something I never paid attention to, which was composers and how movies are scored. Because when I was in my 20s and thought I was going to be in the film music business, I never paid attention to the score. Who was, the background music in a film, which is so important because sometimes there's no songs in a movie and it's all score, and somebody gets hired to write that score and writes that score beautifully. And it really affects you emotionally on your experience of watching the film. So my very first job in the business was working for a composer agent who's now my agent and my dear friend. But he represented very big music composers, Jerry Goldsmith, Howard Shore, John Barry, Danny Elfman, Mark Shaman, Basil Polidorus, all these very big composers, couple of females, Rachel Portman. And I learned about the process of scoring a film, which is invaluable to what I do now, because that's half my job. It is my job to hire the composer and oversee that process. And then after that, I did find my way to Capitol Records. And they didn't have a soundtrack department at the time. And they called me because somebody got my name and said, we have a first look deal with Miramax and we need someone to come in and do Scream 2. And I had no idea how to make a soundtrack. And I said, sure, I can do that. And I walked into the iconic Capitol Records building and wound up staying for 2 years overseeing their soundtrack department. And we did so many soundtracks. We did Good Will Hunting. We did Boogie Nights. We did Romeo and Juliet. We did Never Been Kissed, and on and on and on, all these great soundtracks that we released. And what happened was I was working a lot with 20th Century Fox at the time. And one day I got a call from my, some friends over there and said, we want to hire you on the studio side, and will you come be the vice president of music here? And I was like, sure, I'll come over. Had no idea how the studio works. And this is what I always tell people when they're young and coming up, and some of these people that I like to mentor, these younger aspiring music supervisors. I'm like, just say yes, and then go figure it out. Call everybody you know and get some information and figure out how to do the job. So I walked into Fox and I didn't know what a physical production was. I didn't know what post-production was. I didn't know what any of this was, but I was there for 4 years. And I always say I grew up at Fox because I learned how to be an executive. I learned how music and movies work. I learned how the sausage gets made. Like I understand how it starts from script development to, budgeting your film, to pre-production and physical production, post-production. So that was my foray into the music supervisor world. And from there, I went back to a label and ran soundtracks for EMI. And that was kind of a time where the digital world was coming into our lives, and people was starting to download singles rather than full albums. And so labels got a little scared of taking chances on financing a full soundtrack because it was all about the songs at that point. So I was kind of a little bored at that point. Like I'm not really doing as much as I'd like to, and got a call from MGM and went back to MGM and was a music executive again there for a year or two. And then in about 2005 or 6, they shut down their music department, and we all got paid out of our deals. And I'm like, what am I going to do next? And I got a call from a friend of mine who worked at Warner Brothers who said, do you want to music supervise a film? And I was like, by myself? Sure, I'll do it. And then that led to another job from him. And then Fox started calling me like, wait, what? You're supervising? You know everybody here. We're just going to hire you on our movies. So that's how my independent career started. So half my career was in-house, getting invaluable information about how music and movies work. And now I've been independent since then. And, you know, I have a 15-year-old son, and it's been really fun sharing, you know, my supervision and my movies and my experience and all my fun, the things I get to do with him. So I'm very happy being independent now, but it wasn't like that my whole career.
Right. Same with me. I had to work for studios and, you know, all that kind of stuff until the magical, you know, phone call came.
Exactly.
And all of a sudden I was independent, you know, and kissed all those studios goodbye and was on my own, and, you know, biting my nails and stuff because can I really support my family doing this, you know? And the answer was
correct.
Yes.
Yeah. At that point, because you established yourself. Yeah, exactly.
So do you still listen to music for enjoyment, or is it really hard to separate that from your professional work?
You know, oh yes, of course I do. Sometimes I like the silence, I'll be honest with you. But I think, like I said, I have a 15-year-old son, and he is really musical and loves music. So like the other day, 2 days ago, I got in the car and went, the Gaga song just came out from Top Gun and it's so good, we have to hear it. You know, so on the way to school, I had to play him. And he's like, Mom, it sounds like something else that I know. And so we talk about that. And I said, well, it has just enough 80s production where it kind of brings you to like the old Top Gun, but it's contemporary. So yes, I love listening to music, and I especially love sharing it with my son. That's really, really fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Do you approach each project differently?
Yes. I would say one of the great things about what I do is every movie is different. Every movie has a different set of people, you know, filmmakers and executives and, you know, a whole crew, and every music's different. So some movies are so musical, I have to start months and months before the movie gets shot. Like, for instance, Pitch Perfect, all the Pitch Perfect movies. We had to figure out what the heck that was, first of all, what music they were going to sing on camera. We had to clear all the music. We had to record all the music. We had to rehearse all the music. You get my picture here. And so
Absolutely.
that is like a very big pre-process.
Yeah.
Some movies, like the one I just talked about where I had a lot of 70s music, that movie was shot. Actually, they called me because they needed somebody to be on camera. And I got Tori Kelly to sing at the end of that movie. But then I did most of that music and most of my job in post-production after the movie was assembled. So every film gets approached differently, whether there's what we call on cameras, like a Pitch Perfect or A Star is Born, or if it's mostly done in post-production. So every script, I get usually hired in the script phase, and I'm budgeting and breaking down the script. And then we're talking about what we need to do before we shoot, what we're going to do on set, and then what we're going to do in post-production.
Excellent. So do you, when you're sitting there in the script phase, do you know, like when you're going through it, like, oh, I got an idea, I'm going to play so-and-so music, and, you know, oh, this song over here by the Beatles will fit perfectly, or whatever, right?
If you have money for the Beatles.
Yeah, I'm sure the licensing is like insane, right? And do you cover some of that too?
So I'm involved in that. There are very smart clearance people that do this job. It's a separate job to clear music. But what we do with me and my team is we send in the request. So we say, hey, we would like to use this Beatles song. We'd like to use Hey Jude in this scene for this amount of time, and I have this amount of money. Can you go see if you can make that happen? Numbers come back, and I go, oh, no. Then I call and go, can I get it for less? Or can you master owner match the publishing, or can you publish owner, the publishing owner match the master so we can get it for a certain price? So I am involved in all those negotiations, but there are very much smarter people than I that actually fill out the paperwork and negotiate all the rights.
Right.
But every movie budget is determined by the overall budget of the film. So for Pitch Perfect, for example, the movie was made for this amount of money. So they set aside this amount of money for music based on the music needs and the overall budget. And we always go and say, well, we need this amount of money. Can we get this amount of money? So there's always a give and take, because they give us this, we want this, but we always wind up here, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also the filmmakers, if there's a song we can't afford and the director wants to fight for it, then the director will go fight for it, and a lot of times that weighs heavily on the filmmaker. Like, we hired this director for their vision, and they think this song is best in the scene, we're going to pay for it. Or they'll say, absolutely not, find a replacement. And that's where I come in and help.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask, well, kind of based on that then, do you kind of, when you're approaching a film or like kind of a scene, do you tend to have sort of a couple of choices, or do you have something in mind and just think, right, come hell or high water, I want this particular track in this particular scene?
That's a good question, because it's never my final decision, by the way. I can think a song, I can say, okay, director, this song is so good, you have to use it. And they can say, I'm not feeling it. And you're like, no, it's so good. So I push so far, and then I know when to stop pushing, right? But I'm not joking, I send sometimes hundreds of songs for one spot in a movie. Hundreds and hundreds.
Oh, wow.
And that's because some directors are just like, what else do you got? What else do you got? And you're like, really? I've sent you like 75 songs. And some directors know what they want. They're like, I love that. It's done. We're done. Everybody works differently. And sometimes I'm up all night listening. I've had these aha moments where, it's 11 o'clock at night. I've not been able to nail this scene. And I hear one song, I'm like, this is what they're looking for. And I send it, and it goes right in. Those are my brilliant moments. But most of the time it's a lot of, we cut in a lot of different songs, and we see what works best, And I also get songs written for films. I did this beautiful movie with one of my favorite directors called The Starling in COVID, and with Melissa McCarthy. And we had 4 artists write songs that were beautiful. I had the Lumineers write a song, Brandy Carlisle wrote a song, Nate Roos from Fun wrote a song, and Judah and the Lion wrote a song. And we showed them this movie, we sent them the scene, back and forth with the director. Of course, I'm talking to their team, and these artists nailed this. And the Starling's a beautiful movie. Just the music alone is gorgeous. And then the score was done by, did you see it?
I have seen it, yes.
And then the score is done by Benjamin Wallfish.
Oh, right. Wow.
I don't know if you know Ben Wallfish, but he did the score. Yeah. So, sometimes it's finding existing music, and sometimes it's calling people that you want to write for. And I love all of it.
That's great. Because, having music linked to a film can be a really big deal for a new and young and upcoming band. And do you take any of that into consideration when you're marrying a song to a scene?
You mean like helping to break a new band?
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I think the answer is yes in 2 different ways. One, you always want to champion your new bands and your unknown artists, because it's today, film and TV is the new radio, right? So many, especially in television. I tend not to do television because I think the schedules are crazy, but the people that do television are really breaking these bands. I mean, how the music is used so brilliantly in these, limited series, especially. But I always think of like an example, 6 Feet Under. The very last episode when they played Sia, I think it was Breathe or Breathe In, that broke her. I mean, that was, amazing. And we all know who Sia is, and we remember that moment. I mean, personally for me, when I did The Devil Wears Prada, I remember where I was when I heard KT Tunstall's Suddenly I See. And I went, this is the opening of this movie. And that huge opening scene of Prada, I mean, I don't want to say it broke her, but it definitely made people more aware of who she was as an artist. And, it's kind of an iconic opening of a film. So, I love finding new bands and new artists, especially because nowadays anybody can release music, but it's hard to make a living doing it. So if you can help an artist, get not only the clear licensing costs, but have, residual income from playing it, it's just such a great feeling,
Right. Certainly is.
When we were talking earlier, I know initially you started off working for Capitol and you worked for kind of like sort of a couple of labels. When you were working for the labels, were you bound to using artists on actually their roster, or actually did you still have a free reign?
Well, good question. My job at the label was to utilize our music, like Capitol Records, and pitch it to the supervisors and pitch it to the studio. So I was sending all the artists on Capitol to try to get, but when we were releasing the soundtrack, it was a full picture of the whole movie. So the soundtrack that we put out was not only Capitol, but my job was to really try to get our artists in the project. Yeah.
Right. That just makes sense.
Yeah. It's why they have in-house people at labels, because all those labels pitch to supervisors like myself. They're always trying to get their content and their product in our projects.
Right. So have you ever turned down a project? After your independence as a music supervisor, did you turn down projects because, one thing or another?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's just too much of another workload to take on a heavy, if I'm doing some heavy lifting and I have what we call a big on-camera movie, which is like a Pitch Perfect or A Star is Born, you've got a lot of musical numbers to create, clear, and record. And then you've got another one comes in, you're like, I just can't handle both. Other times I've passed because maybe they don't have enough money to hire me, really. Like, they want to hire me, but it's not enough money for me to really say yes to, just because of like the balance of like the work. But then again, at the other end of the spectrum, this movie that I just did, that I was referencing 70s music, it was a director that I did The Devil Wears Prada for, and I loved the project and I loved him. So I don't care how much money they have, I'm going to say yes. It just depends. It depends on, I weigh every opportunity and what my schedule looks like. And I don't want to say yes to something and then I can't deliver. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that I deliver all the time. Yeah.
Absolutely. Reputation is everything.
That's right. Yeah, you're only as good as your last project. So I want to make sure that I deliver.
Exactly.
Have there been any projects that you'd wished you'd worked on, but it didn't quite work out?
Let me think about that. It's interesting. There are probably projects that I wish I would have been called for sure. But then I hear the horror stories behind them and I go, oh my God, I dodged a bullet.
Yeah, I bet.
You know what I mean?
I bet there's plenty of those.
I guess a better way to say that is like, there's so many colleagues that I really respect that have done amazing jobs on some of the musical projects they've done. And whether or not I was called or not, you just respect them and say, it's just good for the craft that so-and-so did, this movie or this, big movie. And it's all good for all of us all the time. But sure, there's movies I wish I would have been called on, but I always say there's enough work to go around,
Right. Absolutely. There is. So how do you find, that perfect track? Do bands solicit to you? Like if, Bells into Machines wants to, get a song into a movie, do we send you, a record or something? And then you decide if you have something that fits that bill, or how does that work for submissions to you as a supervisor?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, I would love to listen to everything that I get, but I don't. There's not enough time in the day. So the cool thing is that every label, every publisher, every independent pitcher, every manager, like we're on all their lists. So I have the new album of everything, and so whether I want to listen to it for my enjoyment or I want to listen to it because I think it might be right. But on the other hand, like I have a coordinator, and what she does is we send out a lot of searches. So like for the 80s movie, for example, we were looking for this type of song for this scene. It's got to, this is what it needs to do in the film. And this is the budget we have. So we sent out a search. All the music goes to her, and she weeds everything out for me. And then she'll send me a playlist. Like, I think these are some of the songs you should listen to. And then I weed it down, and then I send it on to the editor, the music editor. So it's twofold. Sometimes it's, as things come in, I'm like, oh my God, I want to listen to this because it might be right for my movie. And the other is that we do searches. And a lot of times we do searches because we have a budget, like I mentioned. And for every song we spend a lot of money on, we might only have $10,000 to $20,000 for these other spots. And I just don't know how much I can't just pull music out from the whole universe and know how much we're going to get charged, especially on period songs. So then I do a search and I say, hey, publisher label, I have this amount of money. Only pitch me songs which are going to clear for this amount of money. And then I'm at least a little bit safe sending them on to the cutting room and to my director saying, here's a bunch of choices that we can afford. Pick one. That's the responsible way of trying to, make sure your budget is, you're tied up with your budget.
Right. Very interesting.
That's really, really interesting. You've been very...
Yeah, because for every,
sorry, carry on. No, sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, just to further that real quick, like, let's say I have a Bruce Springsteen song, which is rare, or, a Who song. We can spend money if those are places that we feel it's important to the storytelling, to the movie, but then we call those our tentpole songs. And then we have to fill the rest of the movie with sometimes $2,000 songs. I mean, I'll spend $2,000 on a song where I've spent $300,000 in a movie. So it just all has to even out. So there's kind of all these tricks we do to like make sure that the budget comes in to what we've been given. But we always ask for overages anyway. We're like, here's the best that I can do, you guys. Here's the best that I can do. Here's my box, and look how good this is. And we just need $100,000. And sometimes they go, sure, because it's worth it and everything's playing well,
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So a quick kind of aside, kind of a similar question. So if you buy the rights to a song, can you use it as many times as you want to, or do you have to be very specific about where it's going to be used in the film?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So the price of the song is determined by how many times and how long it is. So let's say I can't just buy the rights and use it 5 or 6 times. I have to say I have it in twice, and it's going to cost more than once. Right. So we always send in the timings. And when we send in the timings, we try to pad those timings a little bit in case it slides 5 seconds here and 5 seconds there. Because if we put a song in a movie and I've cleared it for a minute and it winds up being 1:30, I have to go back and say, oops, it's not an oops. It's like we've extended it.
Yeah.
How much are you going to charge? Can you please keep it the same? And they always say no. And then we just hope that they don't charge us that much more. But that's something I'm looking at too. So when I get timings from music editors, like sometimes they'll give me a heads up and say, oh, heads up, we just extended the song up, 30 seconds. Yeah. Or they'll say, oh, we cut it down to 15 seconds. And then at the end of the movie, we'll go back and say, can you give me a reduced price? Because we actually cut the time in half. So that determines how much a song costs.
Right.
Yeah.
And I bet artists aren't very happy about that.
Well, they sometimes don't know what happens. They don't know what's happening in the background. They just see the final product, right?
Mm-hmm. Right, exactly.
Right.
But I'd be really happy to see my song in a movie, period. You know what I mean? Just sitting in the theater going, oh man, that's awesome. Look at that.
Right. How exciting.
Very much so.
Exactly. So I know you're very decorated within your field for awards, and rightly so. Can you tell us what those awards mean and, which ones you have and what they were for?
Oh my God, you're so funny. Well, I would say one of the greatest awards that we can be given in our craft is the Guild of Music Supervisor Awards. And that is, we have a guild now. We're not a union. Our guild, I think, is 11 years old, maybe going on its 12th year. And that is voted on by your peers. So I do have a couple of those, which has been really lovely to accept. Pitch Perfect has been the gift that keeps on giving. I will say,
Sweet.
I'm very proud of that. I have a partner that I supervise those with. Her name is Julianne Jordan. We partnered on Pitch Perfect. We were never partners before, but because that was such a big undertaking, and we created this whole new genre of a cappella musicals, we've definitely won a bunch of awards for that. We have a Billboard Music Award. We have an American Music Award. You know, the pyramid, like you watch all these artists as you're growing up and you're like, I have that award now.
Right.
We have Academy of Country Music Award for A Star Is Born. We have a Grammy for A Star Is Born. So I do have a Grammy that I won for A Star Is Born with Julianne. So it's been a really fun ride. I have to say I'm very grateful and that I get to do what I love to do. I mean, there's definitely times where I want to quit. Not kidding. You know, like this job sucks. I hate it. It's really hard. I'm tired of getting beaten up. But you know what happens is you go to sleep and you wake up and you go, I'm working in music, in movies. I mean,
that's right.
And I work with some really great people, and I've been doing it long enough where I get repeat business from directors. And again, I have to deliver, or, you know, I can't take it for granted, but there are some nice awards on my shelf in my in my family room in the back bookcase. But yeah, winning a Grammy, I have to say, was, you know, whoever thought that music supervisors could win a Grammy, and now we can win Emmys and we can win Grammys. So next is the Oscar, which we can't win yet, but we're working on it. Yeah,
working on it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you'll make a film about music supervisors, and that way you can act in the film and win it that way.
And win.
Who knows?
Exactly.
You actually sort of write, if you actually write it, you actually could win the triple, the writer, the actor, and then also the music supervisor role.
That's right. That's
I can hire myself.
That's right.
I can hire myself and pay me my fee.
Nice.
Might argue with yourself, and you know, no, that's too much. No, it's not enough.
Negotiate. I know exactly.
I actually sort of want extra benefits. No, you can't have them. Yes, you can.
Exactly. I want more royalty points. Yeah. Exactly.
It must be a real glint of sort of recognition when, like, sort of you are kind of nominated for like sort of an award. Can you remember how you felt the first time you were ever nominated?
Well, of course. It's I think you just kind of also think, wow, I've reached this level where people are seeing my work and knowing that what I'm doing and what my tastes are and what my abilities are.
Yeah.
It's nice to be recognized, you know, for something that you're so passionate about. I mean, all of us supervisors are doing this because we're so passionate, just like, you know, the musicians and the directors and all the people that it takes to make a film or a television show or a video game. And it's just a big honor, you know. Like I said, I don't take it for granted. I come from Chicago, from the Midwest. I went to Indiana University. I didn't study this. I studied sports science because, you know, I was a gymnast. I was a cheerleader. I thought I would be an exercise physiologist or an athletic trainer. And I just had this passion for music. So, and I just found my way and figured it out. And so, like I said, all those awards are reminders that, like, you can do this. And I know this sounds cliche, but I had a very big mentor and internship program, and I have a lot of ex-assistants and interns that are running DreamWorks Music, are running Netflix Music, you know, running Universal Music. And I feel like it's my job to pass it on, because when I was here, there weren't a lot of mentors for me. I definitely had some, but if I have that knowledge and I have time, you know, I volunteer. I'm a trustee with the Recording Academy. And I do mentorships through them, and I do mentorships through the Guild of Music Supervisors. And And I just think, I'm not going to be doing this forever. So why not educate the next generation? Because, it's helpful. It's a hard business. There's a lot of moving parts. And if you can take someone under your wing and kind of guide them a little bit, they can have a quicker path. And everyone's going to fail. I failed a million times. But sometimes it's safer to fail underneath somebody than fail on your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Totally.
And that's great that you mentor up and coming, music supervisors and people of all kinds of positions, right? So I know I do the same, with my career as well. I like to mentor younger people and, teach them how to mix records, how to make records, and so on and so forth. I think it's a lot of fun. I mean, I get a lot of, personal enjoyment out of it. But I think, at the same time, I really like that, just the I don't know what I'm trying to say. The act of giving back,
the satisfaction too of
it really is. So, tell me about that for you. Like, what does that mean to you when you mentor an aspiring industry professional?
I just have a big sense of pride. I see these a lot of women, of course, a lot of women and a couple men, doing great things and managing, big studio departments and having people work under them. I don't know. It's like a sisterhood and it's a brotherhood. We all help each other. We all lift each other up. And, I have a bunch of women that I grew up with. They are my best friends. They're running Sony Music. They're running Fox Music. They're running New Line Music. And some of them were supervisors and some used to work in DreamWorks. We're all still very close. Mm-hmm. It's like the bat line. Okay, who has a number for this person? I need to get to this person. Here you go. Call this person. Like, it's just this camaraderie. And honestly, without these women in my life, I would not be able to get up every day and do what I do. Like, they inspire me, as much as I inspire other people, I am also still inspired on a daily basis by people that do this. And it's interesting. It's competitive, but it's not, like you said, is there a movie I wish I would have gotten? I've been in rooms where I haven't gotten a film, but it's like, it was better for that. At the end of the day, it was better for you. Or I've gotten a movie over someone else. They're like, you were meant for this job. Mm-hmm. So it's weird. You forget about it, you move on, and you do it as a team. Even though I'm by myself, really, I surround myself with a lot of people that inspire me and that can help move forward, because I'm a mom, and I have a busy career, and you're trying to juggle it all. And, there's help and there's support, and I take it when I can.
Nice.
That's perfect.
That's really good. Yeah. That's really good. Obviously you worked on sort of A Star Is Born, and we can't not really talk about that. Obviously,
here, look. Here's my office.
Nice.
There's
That's
my
right.
record. There's
Look
my
at
poster.
that.
And
Allie.
That's beautiful.
Allie, Maine, and Jackson, Maine, right back there.
You also stated that you sort of won a Grammy for that as well, and kind of actually like sort of deservedly so, because the kind of music. Well, obviously there wouldn't be a film without that music, because it's all based on that. Do you have any good stories that actually you could share with us about that process and about the recording of A Star Is Born?
Well, I mean, sure, there's a lot of stories I can tell and a lot of stories I can't tell, but
yeah, I bet.
I mean, obviously, you have Lady Gaga, and you have Bradley Cooper. I mean, two of the most talented people. And I will tell you one thing that a lot of people don't know, that mostly the rule in a musical film is you never record live, ever. That is a rule. You pre-record everything, right, Toby? And you play it back on set and you lip sync to it. And the reason is, in editorial, you need to be singing the same song the same way, because there's all these camera angles, and they need to be able to edit. And if you're singing these bars like 5 seconds longer, it's not going to edit together. But Lady Gaga and Bradley wanted to do everything live.
Wow.
And when you have someone that can sing like her, it works. So that whole movie was done live singing. Even Bradley, who is a genius and worked with a vocal coach for a long time. Yeah. And besides them being brilliant, we had a brilliant sound mixer who knew how to mic and knew how to get those performances. So that is the only movie. I mean, there's moments where you will kind of start live and then go into playback. We call that playback on set.
Yeah,
sure.
So you get like the organic start of the song, so it doesn't go all of a sudden you're singing to a track, talking, all of a sudden you're singing. There's that organic entrance. But that movie was done completely live, and look at what I mean. I think the reason it resonated with people is she treated that like she treats her shows. Her mixers were there. Her on I want to say on set. Her touring people were there. Like it was staged like a show, and the singing part. And so I think that's why it was so emotional. Honestly, I don't think it would have been as emotional if we had pre-recorded everything. So that's a fun little fact about that movie.
Wow, nice.
That's fabulous.
And of course, I got to go to her house when I interviewed for the job, and I was like, "What do I wear to Lady Gaga's house?" that was fun. That was fun. Like I got to go to her house, and she sang. One of the greatest moments, when I drive away and go, I have a cool life, is she sang to us at her kitchen table in our first meeting.
Wow.
And she sang Shallow.
Wow.
And it was incredible. And so, that was a moment I'll never forget. So I feel so blessed and lucky to have worked on that film.
Absolutely. Giving me chill bumps just
I'm
thinking
telling
about
you,
sitting at the table with her singing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And,
Well,
we hadn't shot a note.
Right. That's great because, the live thing, I love that. Right? I think you're absolutely right when it comes to the emotion of that whole movie. If that was all live, oh my God, that's so
all
amazing. And that's why, and that's why it translates so well, I think, to the screen and the emotion of it all. That's great. So you mentioned you're a board member for the LA chapter of the Recording Academy. What can you tell us about that, and what exactly was your role?
So I've been a board member going on, I think, my 12th year. I am a local board member for the LA chapter, but I'm also a trustee. So I have the honor of being elected. I'm in my second term as a trustee. So I sit on the local level and on the national level. So there's just lots of points of service you can be involved in when you're whether you're on the board or not. If you're a member of the Recording Academy, you can sit on these committees. But I was a governor for 4 years. I've been a vice president, and now I'm a trustee. So, I think we have new leadership at the Recording Academy. I feel like we're definitely moving into a much more current construction of what this organization should be. The Grammys, the Recording Academy is the Grammys, but we also have Music Cares and the Grammy Foundation and all of the things that go under the Recording Academy. And it's an era. We are contemporary. We're moving forward. We're making appropriate changes. I think that the membership is happy with where we're going, and it's a really exciting time to be in music and be a member of this organization. So I will keep serving as long as I can. I do a lot of mentorship and other things. I work with the membership department and the mentorship and all kinds of things. So I enjoy it. I feel like it's something that I can do now. I have knowledge and experience, and I'll share it where I can.
That's excellent. Thank you.
That's very good. If you could give one piece of advice to anyone wanting to follow in your footsteps, what would that piece of advice be?
Well, if it's a music supervisor you want to be, I always say, if you want to be a music supervisor, go work for a music supervisor. That's where you learn the craft. That's where you're going to touch everything and see the scripts and all of that. But back to my other stories is, if someone asks you to do a job and you don't know how to do it, say yeah, and you wanted to say yes, just say yes, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure it out. And you have to be resourceful. I used to say, I see if I can remember this. There's like 3 R's that I always give people like advice. You have to be respectful because look, I have people that were working for me and answering my phones, and now they are hiring me. Right. So you need to be respectful for the people that work under you and the people that are working for you, because one day they are going to be hiring you. You have to be resourceful, which is what I'm saying about being yes. Right. And there's a 3rd R, and I'm trying to remember: resourceful, respectful, and resilient. That's the other one, because you're going to get told no a million times. You're going to get told, no, you can't do this. no, this is a bad idea, or no, this isn't going to work. And you have to say, you know what? I'll be right back because I'm going to prove to you how it's going to work. And so those three things are what I always give as advice. If you can exist in those R's, I think you'd have a pretty good career.
That's pretty awesome. I think that's very good advice as well.
Very, very good advice indeed.
The same goes in the music industry, and the production side of it. You have to be very resilient and knock on doors and, until you get what you want, basically, and
Yes.
too many people give up too easily. Yeah. I've noticed that as well. So what's next for Julia Michels?
That's a good question. So I'm obviously going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm trying to move into, I did just get a producer credit on a musical film, which I'm very excited about. And I've got some ideas about some other films I want to maybe produce on the musical side, not just, a film in general, but kind of work into that world. And I do manage a few composers, which I love. They're more like family members. So probably to work in a producer aspect on some of these musicals.
Nice.
And who are some of those gentlemen or people that you manage?
I manage a composer named Christopher Leonards. I manage a composer named John Debney, and I manage a composer named Ryan Shore.
Excellent.
So I manage those three composers, and they're wonderful. And they all have agents, but I grew up in the film business, right, on the composer side. So I kind of like supplement their agents. I'm not their day-to-day agent, but I kind of like, I can call other people that I know on films and see what's going and pitch them as well as their agents. So it's worked really well. So I do that as well.
Nice.
Okay, cool. Nice. That's really good.
How can our viewers and listeners find out more about you?
Well, it's interesting. We've Googled ourselves. There's an interview I did called The Sessions, which I think is pretty informative. There's just, like I said, I've done a couple. Oh my God, I think there's something else online. I've done these little vignettes. I think I was 5 months pregnant when I did it, so it was a long time ago. But there's a couple of videos with me kind of explaining what I do and saying how I got to where I was, and those are informative. But other than that, it's just, I guess, reading a bio. But I kind of laid it all out here.
Okay, cool. What was The Sessions all about?
The Sessions is a really cool. If you look at it, they've interviewed all kinds of musicians, and it was about an hour-long interview about myself and what I do, kind of what you guys are doing. But it was in person before COVID, and I was just part of a series.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Because we had a guest on here named Christian James Hand who runs something called The Sessions, and I thought it might have been the same type of thing.
It could be. That's not who interviewed me, but I'm not sure if that's the same thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Anyway, we like to round things off by asking one of these strange questions on My Wright Stuff. Do you have any superpowers?
Ah, that's so funny.
Or hidden talents?
Hidden talents, yeah.
Oh, well, yes. Hidden talents. Oh, that's funny. Well, I don't know. I think my superpower is just my energy and being very positive. I think that, not getting super emotional and learning how to sort of like be a little even keeled when things like today. I got a call from someone. They're like, oh, that score review didn't go really well, so let's bring in someone else. You're like, wait a minute, so it's kind of like my superpower is that I know how to like stay calm and problem solve, I would say, for sure. And my hidden talents are just, it's funny because I was a gymnast, I was a cheerleader. So, back in the day, I could do a really cool backflip. I don't think I could do it anymore, but I could do it at one point.
So the round off, flip flop and all that kind of stuff. You could do all that kind of floor exercise.
Yes, I could back in the day.
Well, Julia, this has been a very, very enlightening and very informative episode. And those are some awesome stories. Thank you for taking the time to be a part of this episode of My Wright Stuff and sharing even more about you, your history and the music and music supervision and what that's all about. And thank you very much. I really appreciate your time.
No, it's been wonderful, and thanks for having me. Always an honor to talk about this career, and if any of your listeners have any questions, I'm happy to answer anything else. But thank you again.
Well, where can they find you? What, do you have a URL?
No, I don't have. I mean, my Instagram is not public, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I don't have that, and I don't have a website. But I have to sort of kind of keep it contained a little bit, otherwise it gets a little nutty. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure to meet you and to sort of chat with you. I've really enjoyed hearing some of your stories. Thank you very, very much for joining us, and thank you to you people out there for joining us. No star, and take care, and we'll catch you soon, you lovely people.
And I'm your host, Lord Rage Wright, and this has been another informative and entertaining episode of My Right Stuff. Catch up with us again every other week, and remember to listen loud, play hard, and keep reaching for your dreams. Thanks for watching. Good night.
Do you suffer from insomnia, depression, or anxiety? Well, our sponsor TAUMMHOMS may be able to help you in these areas. TAUMMHOMS, a natural sleep and sound healing portal, helping people globally to get to sleep faster and stay asleep longer. And you can find this piece of gold at www.TAUMMHOMS.com. I want to say a big thank you to all of you who stream, download, watch, and support My Right Stuff. And please keep spreading the word, my friends. We really, really do appreciate it. We also now have a My Right Stuff store where you can pick up some snazzy merch for those lovely bodies, or even gift for a loved one or two. Go to myrightstuff.com and click on the store tab. And don't forget to tag us in any photos with our merch so that we can include you in an episode. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast channel of your choice, as well as our YouTube channel and Spotify channel. I hear that it will give you 10 years of good luck. Ring that bell, my friends. This has been another amazing episode of My Right Stuff, and be sure to tune in for this episode and every episode every fortnight for another adventurous and informative show. I'm your co-host, Sir Gareth Dyton, and thank you, my lovelies, for tuning in. No star, you beautiful people, and we'll catch you next time.